Well, welcome to Daily Moments with Carol. I'm Carol Henry, station manager. What a joy to be back with you on this beautiful Monday, and hope you had a wonderful weekend. This is a very special week as we enter in thinking about the birthday of our nation, and yet many of us have heavy hearts over the condition of our nation, and we need to be in much prayer, seeking God, because, hey, the answer lies in the Lord Jesus Christ. And if my people, the Bible says, will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, then God would heal our land. He'll hear our prayers and heal our land. God puts a great responsibility on us who know Him and serve Him. And as we enter into this 4th of July week, remembering the birthday of our nation, I thought it would be very timely that I would interview my very special guest, Dr. Stephen Haymon. And because as our nation is, we have no idea the impact that this war that has gone on over a decade, the Afghan war, has had on our troops as they're coming back from war, suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome. And my guest today, Dr. Stephen Haymon, is a psychotherapist, educational psychologist, and biblical expert who has written a book called Stress: Climbing Out of the Pit with God. And, I don't think that America was ready to handle the post-traumatic stress disorder that we see epidemic in our nation today. And so I want you to call a friend, and I want you to listen carefully as we talk today with Dr. Stephen on the impact that stress has on our life and how stress and war has affected our precious military men and women. Dr. Haymon, thank you so much for being my guest today.
Carol, actually it is my pleasure to be here, to be able to speak to you and your audience on this topic that is so dear to me.
Now, what inspired you to write this book on stress, and was it birthed out of some experiences of stress in your own life? Yes, ma'am.
Actually, I have been in practice for about 20 years. I was afflicted with a life-threatening disease that ravaged my body. I'd lost a lot of weight and had fallen into depression, and the doctors had given up on me.
Wow.
And I had been reared all of my life in a Pentecostal environment. Knew of God through my parents, knew of God through my pastor, but I didn't know Him for myself. But after this illness had afflicted me and had ravished my body and my mind and stuff, and God brought me back, I understood that I didn't know this entity that I needed to know. What happened was someone asked me, because I did workshops. I'd done workshops on stress and stuff. I'd done a workshop, but I guess it was more like I taught with authority, because now I had something to grab hold to. And after that, the lady who had asked me to do it asked me to expound upon the outline, and I sat down, and 400 pages later, it was a book.
Wow.
So it was birthed out of some things that I didn't know about myself, but God allowed things to occur to me so that I could seek Him, so I would know not just my pain, but other people's pain, and try to address whatever they're dealing with, whether it's drug abuse, whether it's sex addiction, whether it's gambling, whether it's whatever the distraction that they use. God gave it to me to be able to at least minister to the people. And so in this book, I talk about anger and unforgiveness and fear and blaming and just a multitude of things. But that happened out of my own pain of going through some things.
And all of this stemmed from the stress of that disease. So people that are under a doctor's report that there's no hope, that does bring that depression and stress, doesn't it?
Well, yes, and our lives are just a vapor, and particularly, I guess, in the 30s, maybe the 40s, we think that we're going to live forever. It's a little different than being in the 20s, but you don't think, because I was running and I was playing, I was exercising, playing various sports and things, so I thought I had at least another 80 years to go. But when that happened, that death certificate had me looking at my life and evaluating what was important to me, because I lost everything. I lost my family. I lost the things that God had allowed me to accumulate. I lost my practice. I lost a lot of things. So when you start losing things and you really don't know God, you can go into a hopeless state. And I did.
And that's why a lot of people turn to addictive drugs or alcohol.
Well, those are distractions. And the distractions are something to mitigate the way you're feeling about the thoughts that you're having.
Yeah.
And so, in my case, I mean, I was trying to latch on to people because I didn't want to die alone. And what I was doing was pushing them away because I was so needy. And so God helped me to understand that He was the only one that I really needed to depend on. But anyway, the bottom line was, through that experience, it helped me to pursue Him. It's helped me to write other books. It's helping me to be able to minister to the military personnel all over the country, their families, their children. And you were saying something about a child who was thinking about committing suicide at 7 years old.
Yes.
And I've seen that. I've seen that in the 40 years that I practice.
And it's hard to believe, but it is happening.
Absolutely.
So let's, first of all, I want us to get into our military and the epidemic of post-traumatic stress disorder, but give our listeners, some of them may not even know what we're talking about when we say PTSD. Explain to our listeners what that is and how it's affecting our military men and women.
Well, let's talk about what post-traumatic stress is, and then we can apply it to the military, if you don't mind, Carol.
Sure.
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a clinical terminology that we use as it relates to people who have experienced trauma. So they've experienced something or witnessed something that was life-threatening or had a profound effect on them mentally and emotionally. From that, they develop intense fear or helplessness or horror. They have intrusive thoughts and dreams. They daydream. They have reoccurrent thoughts and reactions as though the psychological distress is occurring again. They're very reactive, hypersensitive. They have efforts to avoid things and feelings and conversations regarding their trauma. They avoid places and people and things. They have a diminished interest in people and other things that they were connected to, so there's a detachment there. There's a estrangement. There's also a foreshortened view or foreboding future look, difficult in falling asleep or staying asleep, irritability, anger, outbursts, resentment, difficult concentrating. I call it hypersensitive. I call it hypervigilance, but they're extremely hypersensitive to everything and exaggerated started response. You could be looking at a person and you say something, the person jumps and reacts to it. So we're talking about what post-traumatic stress is. As it relates to the military, people have gone into wars and they've watched people get killed. They've gotten maimed themselves. They see people losing limbs. They're walking over dead bodies. They're destroying families and their home lives and things. And so this is a bit different than the way, particularly people have come that have been reared in Christian homes, they were taught to be caring and sharing and work the wheel towards other people. And then they get this military training where it's about kill, 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 destroy. You got to win at any cost. And so you're very reactionary. There's a projection. You're extremely paranoid about everything. And so when people go into that environment, and I call it a pernicious environment, when they go into that environment and then they come back home, the coping skills that they need in a war is not the same thing as acclimating back to a loving home environment, except that we don't cut on and off our feelings and our thoughts that way, and so we're traumatized, and we're reacting to things as though we're still in the war zone.
That is so good. And, I don't think that we are tuned in enough to what our military men and women are going through. I mean, some of them have been deployed 5, 6, 7 times, and they come back and they go through all of that you just described for us as symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And so let's talk about how do they get out of this pit of post-traumatic stress syndrome, and how does a relationship with God truly help?
Well, Carol, and I want to answer that question. If you don't mind, let me just kind of pull out a few other things as it relates to post-traumatic stress and war.
Okay.
Because I wanted to set the backdrop for what post-traumatic stress was. And so a woman being raped could be traumatized. A kid getting hit by a car, or a child watching someone get killed because they're in a certain neighborhood and they watch. So that's post-traumatic stress. But I want to talk about the stuff as it relates to the war. So people, when you're in the war, you have to survive. And so you're using all the skills that you know how to survive. So some of that is paranoia, some of that is fear, some of that is being on edge. It really has to do with just doing what is necessary to survive. So whatever it takes to do to survive over there, you come back. And so you have the fear when you come back. You have helplessness. You're having mental and emotional instability and paranoia. You're having nightmares. You're having daydreams. You're having disassociative flashbacks as though you were there. There's a reaction to stimulus that you perceive is going on that is actually not going on. Defensiveness, hypervigilance, detachment. When I say detachment, it's not just from your children, because your children have needs, your wife have needs, but your friends, and even not being available on the job to do the job because you're caught up in something. There's a perception that you don't know how long you're going to live, so there's that foreboding future. There are cold sweats. There's discombobulated thoughts and speeches, and just a lack of responses appropriately, as well as a combative attitude. So when people go over there and then they come back, there needs to be things that needs to occur, and you and I talked about that a little bit. And in the military, they do have resources, but they have limited resources, because we as a whole, I'm talking about us people, who have people that are involved, or we may know indirectly people, but we really don't put a lot of credence to it, because unless it's our husband or our child or our spouses or something, the people are personifying that they're doing okay, and they look okay externally. It is personifying. And so we don't think that we need to address these issues. The issues, a lot of times in the 40 years that I practiced, and I started this in 1973 under VA hospital, under the substance abuse unit there, when we were addressing these people, we didn't even know that they were